Hello, hello out there. It's Rebecca. Welcome to our Q&A session for today. I have a goal to be live or to show up live every single day on our YouTube channel at 12 p.m. to answer a question from our community. And today we're kind of just doing a Kilimanjaro Q&A session because I think I have, 10 or so questions about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro that have shown up in my inbox in the last couple weeks. And so I thought I'll just show up live and I'll answer all these questions and tell you about our upcoming trip to climb Mount Kilimanjaro again. So anyway, if you're new here, if we haven't met yet, my name is Rebecca. I'm the founder of Hike Like a Woman, and our mission at Hike Like a Woman is to help women explore with confidence, and we do that by leading amazing, incredible outdoor adventures all over the world. You can see my Costa Rica flag here. My office is full of flags. Costa Rica, Utah, Kilimanjaro, Alaska, Peru, all of the things. And so if you're here, welcome. And so I'm just going to dive right into these questions about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm also in the comments. So if you have a question specifically about climbing Kilimanjaro that you'd like to ask while I'm on the live stream, go ahead, drop it in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, you can also comment with any of your questions and I'll follow up after the live stream is over. Okay, so Kilimanjaro is one of the most amazing, incredible mountains in the world. I have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro twice, last summer and this summer, and we're going back next September, September of 2026 with another group of women, and we do have openings for that Kilimanjaro climb. So if you've been watching on our Instagram or our Facebook or our YouTube channel and you've seen a lot of videos and pictures from these climbs, it's really incredible. And I am not an elite endurance athlete. I'm a mom and a business owner, and I've made it to the summit of Kilimanjaro twice. So I say that to say that I think that this mountain is very achievable for anyone who can train a little bit and anyone who really has a desire to climb Kilimanjaro. You can find more information about our Kilimanjaro climb over on our website, hikelikeawoman.com, or you can message me on any of the socials or fire it off an email to rebecca@hikelikeawoman.com, and myself or someone on my team will follow up with you about any questions about our Kilimanjaro climb. So next year, September 21st through the 29th, we will be doing the 7-day Machame Route on Mount Kilimanjaro. And let's dive into these questions. So the elevation of Mount Kilimanjaro is quite high. The summit of Kilimanjaro is 19,341 feet, which is significant altitude. And we start at around 6,000 feet of elevation. That's the elevation where we start our climb. So altitude sickness is a really big concern on Kilimanjaro, and it's a question I get asked a lot. So as you're climbing up to 19,000 feet, one question that I received was, what's the best way to prevent altitude sickness on Mount Kilimanjaro? And especially if you're coming from a low elevation area. This past climb that we just finished up in August, only 2 of us were from elevations that are high. I live at 7,000 feet. And so I have a little bit of a head start, but most of our climbers last year were from very low elevations. Some of them traveled to the Rockies here to get some elevation training in. Most of us took Diamox, which is a prescription drug to prevent and treat altitude sickness. But one of the key things, whether you come and do the 7-day Machame Route with me on Kilimanjaro or whether you go with another group or another guiding company, it's really important to choose that guiding company wisely, because you actually acclimate on Kilimanjaro, which I didn't understand that you could even acclimate on a hike, but you do on Kilimanjaro. And some of the ways that the guiding companies that we choose and use help us acclimate is we keep a very slow, steady pace. About a mile an hour is how fast you hike on Mount Kilimanjaro. Our guides are really good at making sure we're eating well and we're eating what we need to eat to maintain our energy levels, that we're drinking well. Those 3 things really help acclimate. The 7-day Machame Route, the route that we choose, also has utilizes the concept of climb high and sleep low. So we actually will climb up high during the day, and then we'll come back down and sleep at a lower elevation. The next day we'll climb a little higher, and then we'll come down and we'll sleep a little bit. So that allows your body the chance to build up those red blood cells and then to come back down to a lower elevation and get a lot of really, really good rest. So if you sign up to join a Hike Like a Woman trip to Kilimanjaro, we talk a lot about altitude sickness. I have altitude sickness guides. Our guides are very good at monitoring your health. We've actually changed guiding companies to a company that has a little bit better process for managing your health on Kilimanjaro. So there's a lot that you can do. It's way too much for me to go into in a short little live stream today. But if you want information about preventing altitude sickness that's Kilimanjaro specific, let me know. Even if you're not going on one of our climbs, I'm happy to send you that information and those resources. The next question I get asked a lot is, how fit do I really need to be to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? And I mentioned earlier, I'm not like an endurance athlete. I'm a very much middle-aged woman with a middle-aged woman's body. But climbing Kilimanjaro needs to be treated like a big athletic event, because it is a big athletic event. You're essentially hiking 4 to 8 hours a day for 7 straight days. So if you sign up to join me for a climb, I'll send you a training program and we'll support you in our group Slack community, and we'll help you get ready for that climb. But being able to just think about it as an endurance event that is repeat. So it's consecutive days of hiking. You don't get a day off in between. So thinking about it in terms of, what do I need to do to build strength and stamina and fitness? This year, I approached Kilimanjaro training in a very different way than I did last year. And I spent a lot of time actually in the gym lifting weights. I spent a lot of time in the swimming pool because I was nursing some injuries. I really focused on that zone 2 cardio. If you're a Peter Attia fan, you know he talks about zone 2 cardio all the time. I spent a lot of time focusing on hip mobility and flexibility, and just making sure that I was like limber and fluid when I was walking. And the other thing I did this year that really helped with my training was I focused on uphill training with my poles. So that meant doing repeats up the same old ski hill over and over and over again to try to replicate the elevation gain on Kilimanjaro. So there's a lot you can do to train and get ready for Kilimanjaro. We're just less than a year out from our climb in September. So you have plenty of time to prepare and get ready for Kilimanjaro. I would say really focused training needs to start about 6 months before your climb. And that's when you need to really think about getting on a program and following a training program. But with that being said, I think anyone with a moderate level of fitness can make it to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, as long as you're eating, drinking, acclimating well, and as long as you stay healthy. I also want to mention, when we talk about like being fit for Kilimanjaro, we talk a lot about the physical fitness part of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, but there's really another component that is not talked about enough, and that is the mental fitness component of climbing Kilimanjaro. It's hard. It's a hard climb. It's a hard challenge, but it's incredible. It's life-changing. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's why I keep climbing this mountain every single year. I was just listening to a podcast this morning when I was working out. Mark Manson's podcast. I think it's called Solved. And I'm not a huge Mark Manson fan, but he did publish a podcast episode this morning about resiliency and about being resilient and adaptable and flexible. So it's worth a listen. At least like the first 40 minutes are worth a listen. I'm also a huge fan of the concept of anti-fragility, and Nassim Taleb talks a lot about anti-fragility, and it's basically a concept where being flexible allows us to benefit from stress and uncertainty. And instead of being harmed by stress and uncertainty, we actually grow. And so those are just some other concepts to think about when it comes to training for Kilimanjaro. It's like, can you be resilient when the altitude's high and the trail is steep and the wind is blowing in your face, and then can you do that for another day? That's, to me, it's like it's an athletic event, but just having that mindset and being able to overcome like the little challenges that everyone encounters on Kilimanjaro, no matter how fast and fit you are. Next question: what does Kilimanjaro climb actually cost, including all of those hidden fees? Climbing Kilimanjaro is an investment, and it is not cheap. And if you are looking at climbing Kilimanjaro and you're overwhelmed thinking about how expensive it is to climb Kilimanjaro, I would caution you against going with a less expensive tour operator on the mountain, because they're going to be cutting costs with your safety or the guides or the gear or the food. So with that being said, you might need to budget for Kilimanjaro because it is an expensive trip. So you're looking at the base cost of the trip. For my trips, it's just shy of $3,000. That includes like your guiding, your permits, the food, hotel, transportation, everything on the mountain. So there's the base cost of the trip with whatever tour operator or company you go with. And you have to think about flights, travel insurance. You're going to need a more robust travel insurance policy, one that's going to have some pretty generous evacuation and medical criteria. Tips for your guides and porters, because we can't climb this mountain without them. They're incredible. You need a visa. So for US citizens, it's like $101.50 to get your Tanzania visa. So that's like the base cost of the trip. And I would kind of estimate that to be about $4,000, depending on where you're flying in and out, and if you upgrade your seats, or if you, whatever. I'd say about $4,000 is what you need to budget. Now, on top of that, there's also some, I guess, what people would call hidden fees. And that would be like, do you need any extra gear to climb Kilimanjaro? How's your backpack? Does your backpack fit? Does it feel good when you hike? How are your boots? How are your shoes? Do you need to buy any clothing? How's your rain gear? Do you have cold weather rain gear? Training. Some women hired a trainer and they crushed it on Kilimanjaro because they were super fit. I didn't hire a trainer, but I do have a gym membership. It's good to have a check-in with your doctor to talk about getting a prescription for Diamox for altitude sickness prevention, to talk about any vaccines that you might need, any other medications that you might need. That could be a little expensive depending on your health insurance policy. Getting an eSIM card so you can use your phone when you're traveling, souvenirs from Tanzania, getting drinks at the hotel, all those smaller costs really add up. And I did a YouTube video about the cost of climbing Kilimanjaro, so I can link to that in the description for those checking the replay out. But I'd say about $5,000. Now, that sounds expensive, but you're worth it. And it's a trip of a lifetime. And I think that it's always important to just know that the money that we spend on these trips to Kilimanjaro do a great service and provide jobs and opportunities for all these guides and porters. And the amount of money that one group of climbers brings into the local economy is really a significant boost. So you can budget for it, whole year to budget for it. And if you join me for our trip, I think we have travel. I think we have payment plans available. I don't do the back end logistics with that kind of stuff, but I can let you know. Okay, next question. Which route should I choose? I get a lot of questions about which route should you choose on Kilimanjaro. Full transparency, I've only done the 7-day Machame route, but I spent a lot of time studying the routes on Kilimanjaro, talking to different guides about various routes on Kilimanjaro. The Machame route and the Lemosho route are probably the most popular routes. A lot of guides and people recommend doing the 8-day Lemosho route on Kilimanjaro, and that's a great rate. That's a great route. I think the northern route is one that's a little bit more scenic, less crowded, and I think you skip the Barranco Wall on the northern route, but you don't want to skip the Barranco Wall because it's really fun. I like the 7-day Machame route for 2 reasons. The first reason is you start the Machame route, so you can do the Machame route in 6 days or 7 days, but you start the Machame route from the Machame Gate, which is only about a half an hour, 40 minutes or so from Moshi. So you wake up, you load your gear, you get on a bus, and then you can get to the trailhead very quickly. Of course, once you get to the trailhead, you have to wait a little bit. They have to sign everybody into the park. That takes a little bit of time, but you only have to drive in a bus for about a half an hour, which feels really good after you've been flying for 24 or 36 hours. The gate to get to the Lemosho route, the gate where the Lemosho route starts is the Londa Rossi gate. And it's about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive from Moshi. So you're starting your climb 3 or 4 hours later. And I don't know about you, but I would rather be hiking than riding in a bus. So that's one of the reasons that I selfishly really like the 7-day Machame route, just because you can start your hike sooner in the day and just get going, right? The other thing is the Lemosho route is typically done in 8 days. I think there is a 7-day Lemosho, but I think most people do in 8 days or 9 days. That certainly helps with acclimation because it's a more gentle route up until Lava Tower when the trails merge. I actually think that I prefer a 7-day climb over an 8 or a 9-day climb because every day that you're on the mountain is a day that you're going to be tired, a day that you're going to maybe not be sleeping very well in a tent on a sleeping pad. It's a day where you might not be eating as well because it's camp food, and while it's good and the cooks do a great job of preparing the food, it's just more wear and tear on your body the longer that you're actually out on your Kilimanjaro climb. So I would certainly recommend against doing a 6-day climb. Those people suffer. Like everyone I've seen and everyone who I've talked to who has done a 6-day Kilimanjaro climb has just talked about how awful it was and how much they suffered. I think 7 days is really the sweet spot because you're on the mountain long enough to acclimate, but you also are still pretty refreshed because you haven't had that extra wear and tear of those 2 extra days on the body. This last year, we started our climb. There was another group of women. They were doing the 8-day Lemosho route. We were doing the 7-day Machame route. And they started a day before us. And they were really fit and really strong. And we saw them at the hotel and we were like, those girls are going to crush it up to Kilimanjaro. And by the time we saw them on summit night, they had really slowed down and they were really exhausted. And on the last day, our group just blew past them as we were heading down the mountain. And I think it's because we were a little more fresh by just doing a 7-day route instead of an 8-day route. So maybe someday I'll try the 8-day Lemosho route and really be able to give you an honest opinion. But I will say I love the 7-day Machame route. And if you're going to do one route on Kilimanjaro, I think the 7-day Machame route is pretty great. Next question. What should I pack for my Kilimanjaro climb? What clothing and gear do I need? Well, you pretty much just need whatever you wear at home when you're going on a hike. We essentially go from the rainforest all the way up to the Arctic zone on Kilimanjaro. So you are going to experience all sorts of different weather conditions, temperatures, terrain, vegetation. It's like, I think that's one of the things that makes climbing Kilimanjaro so special is that you're not just experiencing one type of terrain and one type of scenery. You really see it all from the rainforest to the summit where you'll see snow and glaciers all the way back down to the rainforest. So when you join a Hike Like a Woman trip, we give you a complete packing list. I also, I'll link to it below, but I also have another packing list that I put together that I share with the public. So I can share that with you. After 2 Kilimanjaro climbs, I think I've pretty much nailed the packing list, and I know exactly what you need to wear and exactly what you need to pack. But really every day you are wearing hiking clothes, and you just add layers as you go up and take layers off as you go down. Summit night is extremely cold. And so you'll need some really good cold weather clothing to keep you warm on summit night. And then a sleeping bag. The guides provide sleeping pads, tents. So it's not like backpacking. We have porters that carry all of your clothing, your sleeping bag, all of your kind of camp gear, and you just hike with a day pack every single day. And in that day pack, you just have an extra layer, water, some snacks, medications. Yeah, so day packs are pretty light. About a 25 to 30 liter day pack is kind of the size of day pack you need. But yeah, if you're interested, if you have a climb coming up with another company and you want to know what to pack, I will link below after this is over to my packing list. Next question, what does a typical day on the mountain look like? Every day is pretty much the same on the mountain except for the first day, summit night, and the last day. So you pretty much just wake up and start walking. It's really lovely, and I actually really miss the routine on Kilimanjaro because you wake up with a cook bringing you a cup of tea, not lemon spindrift, but bringing you a cup of tea or coffee to your tent, and they ask you how you slept, and they give you a mug of a hot beverage, and then you sip the drink as you get dressed, and they bring you a bowl of warm water, and you wash your face, and then you eat breakfast and you start hiking. Usually we would start hiking about 7:30, 8 in the morning, and we'd get to our campsite early afternoon, have lunch at our campsite most of the time, and then have the afternoon to rest and to read and to talk and to play games. And then you have happy hour without alcohol, with popcorn and cookies, and then a really big, delicious dinner. And then you go to bed early and wake up and do it the next day. All except for summit night. Summit night, you kind of have the same routine, but you after dinner you go to bed, and then the guides wake you up about 10:30 or 11. You get dressed, you eat a little bit, and then you start your summit bid. And you essentially hike from midnight until you reach the summit of Uruhu Peak. And we reached the summit at 7:45 a.m. last year. This year we reached the summit at 7 a.m. And then you take your pictures, but guides don't want you on Kilimanjaro on the summit for very long because the altitude is very high. They want to get you back down to a lower elevation quickly. So then you come back down to your camp. You have a few hours to change your clothes, to rest, to eat something, and then you have to keep hiking to a lower camp. So that's the only day where the routine is really different. And summit night is awesome and incredible and difficult and inspiring and amazing. And you're going to dig deep and you're going to learn a lot about yourself on summit night. I think there's been at least the past two trips that I've been on. Sometimes there's some fear about summit night and some anxiety about summit night, just because you don't know how many of us have walked all night long before, and how many of us have been to 19,000 feet. There's so much uncertainty surrounding summit night, but it's all good and it's great and it's incredible. So that is pretty much what a typical day looks like and what summit night looks like. And if you join me for a trip, we'll talk a lot about summit night so that you are prepared physically and mentally for summit night and then summit day, because summit day is also hard. Like, it doesn't end when you get to the top of the mountain. You still have to get down. Next question, how do you handle bathrooms and hygiene on the mountain? I know that some guiding companies provide a private toilet. Our guiding companies, we have private toilets. They're just tents with a little portable toilet. So you just go to the bathroom when you're at camp in the portable toilets. And it's really simple. I think we had one toilet for every 4 to 5 climbers on both of our trips. So there's plenty of toilets. When you're hiking, it's just like when you're hiking at home. If you have to go to the bathroom, you find a tree or a rock or a bush. Some of the areas on Kilimanjaro can be quite barren, but guides are pretty good about turning away and not looking when you have to go to the bathroom. I will say that I have been disappointed on both of my climbs with the amount of litter on Kilimanjaro. I think it really upsets our guides too, and they actually close down the mountain and clean it. I think once or twice a year, but there's a lot of littered and discarded toilet paper on Kilimanjaro. So I think it's important, even when you're not on Kilimanjaro, I always just think it's important to pack out your toilet paper and any of your waste. So yeah, that's pretty much how you handle going to the bathroom on Kilimanjaro. Now, as far as hygiene goes, our guides and porters would always set up a bucket of water and soap so you can wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, wash your hands before you eat meals. It's important to wash hands. We know that hand sanitizer is good, but it doesn't protect against norovirus. So it's important to use soap and water to wash your hands when you can. And our cooks would also bring us warm bowls of water when we would arrive at our campsite after hiking all day long, so we could washy. And then in the morning, you also get a bowl of warm water so you can wash in the morning. But hygiene is really important, and keeping your hands clean especially is important on Kilimanjaro. In all of my wilderness first responder courses, my instructor always calls these the fecal fingers of death. So keeping your hands clean is really important on Kilimanjaro. So next question is, what was the hardest part of the climb? I think a lot of people will say that summit night is the hardest part of the climb, because we talked about it earlier. You're basically hiking all night long and you're getting to this very high elevation above. You're in the Arctic zone. It's cold, it's windy, you can't see anything, a little scary maybe. So I think a lot of people say that summit night is the hardest part of the climb. For me, there's one certain point that has been a difficult place for me personally on both of my climbs. And that has been actually the moment where I have returned to my tent after standing on the summit. So you climb up high, you get back down to your tent. It's it's like the middle of the morning. It's like 8 or 9, maybe 10 a.m. when you get back to your tent. And both of those times, I've just been really overcome with exhaustion, and mentally, like, I've just kind of lost it a little bit, both of those moments. And I think it's because you're trying so hard on summit night. You're so focused on getting to the summit and getting back down to the campsite safely, that it's just like, by the time you get back to your tent, there's just this physical release, because it's like, we just did it. I just did it. I just stood on the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. So there's a physical release. And for me, I think there's also just been a bit of a mental release, where it's like, okay, now I can cry a little bit, because what I just did was incredible. And what I watched these women do in my group was incredible. So for me, that's been the hardest part of the climb, has actually been that moment after summit night, getting back to base camp, sitting in my tent and just processing, like, whoa, what just happened? There's another difficult part of the climb that no one talks about, and it's very real, but that is the moment when you come home after climbing Kilimanjaro, and you've just had this very, like, incredible experience. You've just climbed a really big mountain, and now you have some big feelings and some big emotions about climbing Kilimanjaro. And you come home, and I remember I came home and I'm trying to talk to my husband about what climbing Kilimanjaro was like. And I was like, he just doesn't understand, because he wasn't on the mountain with me. But thankfully, I had just climbed Kilimanjaro with a group of incredible women. And so I was able to hop on the phone and send text messages and Slack messages to the women who were on the climb. And I've been like, I'm really trying to process what we just did and this huge accomplishment. And nobody understands. but they understood. So that's another reason why it's important to climb Kilimanjaro with a group who's going to be there for you after the climb. And it's great. It's really great. In fact, right now that's kind of happening with our group that just climbed in August. Is there's been a lot of phone calls and emails and messages just trying to figure out like what did I just do? It's incredible. So it's also hard kind of coming home and reintegrating. I had breast cancer a few years ago, and for me, it's kind of like after you've been through something like cancer or maybe a divorce, maybe it's someone who has had to go through that, who you can talk to about what you just experienced. That's kind of the same thing on Kilimanjaro. Last night I had a trip to the cancer center to meet with my doctor, and there was some stuff, and so I called my friend who had breast cancer, and I was like, hey, guess what? So anyway, I'm fine. It's all fine. But that's how coming off Kilimanjaro is. It's like you want to have that support network who's going to understand and what you just did because they were there with you. Okay. Next question. I have 2 more questions and then we're almost done with today's live stream. So thanks for hanging in there. This has been fun. It's been fun to just kind of rethink about and relive climbing Kilimanjaro because as you can tell, I love Kilimanjaro and I love Tanzania. I love the guides and the porters. I love the vibe on the mountain. I love the Jumbo song. I love everything about climbing Kilimanjaro. And if you're to do one incredible adventure for yourself, it needs to be Kilimanjaro. It needs to be Kilimanjaro. Okay, next question. What is the most common reason people don't make it to the top? So what's the most common reason people don't make it to the summit? I would say it's usually sickness and altitude sickness. And sometimes it's just hard to acclimate. And there's so much that goes into that. But I will say that Hike Like Woman has like we have a pretty high summit success rate, and I don't really like using that. But I think one of the reasons that we have a high summit success rate is because we don't focus on the summit during our climb. We focus on pole pole, hiking slowly. We focus on taking it one step at a time. We focus on trying to be present and be in the moment and not be focused on the summit. And I think that's the reason we're successful with summits on Kilimanjaro, because we realize that it's not about standing on the summit. I mean, it kind of is. Everybody wants a picture with the Kilimanjaro sign. I can do that in Photoshop for you, but you want to stand, like we all want to stand on the summit, right? But we also acknowledge that it's the journey that is just as important as the summit, if not more important than the summit. So it's by not focusing so much on the summit, I think we're able to really enjoy the process of getting to the summit. I don't know if that makes any sense. But if you can stay healthy, if you can do a little bit of training, and if you got a little bit of grit, you're gonna make it to the top of Kilimanjaro. And if you come with me, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you make it to the summit or make it as high as you want to go. Some women have joined me on the climb and been like, I have never been to this altitude before in my life, and what I've seen up to this point has been amazing, and this is my summit. And that's a beautiful thing too. Acknowledging, sometimes it's harder to acknowledge when we need to turn around and go back for our own health and safety than it takes more courage to do that than it does to get to the summit. Okay, and next question, can I join a Hike Like a Woman trip? Not just Kilimanjaro. I mean, we lead trips all over the world. Can I really join a Hike Like a Woman climb even if I don't know anyone in the group? I would say that about half of women who join me for adventure trips all over the world don't come with a friend. They just they follow us on Instagram and Facebook for a while. I watch some of our videos and then they join us for a trip. So you don't need to bring a friend to climb Kilimanjaro because you're going to make a whole bunch of new friends, and you can bring a friend, and that's awesome. And that's great. And I love it when friend groups come. But we always try to make sure that We include everybody in the group, regardless of if you come with a friend or if you come and join us alone. And I'm saying we because in the next year, I might have some other women be helping me join lead trips for Hike Like a Woman. So that is kind of something we're working on right now behind the scenes. So anyway, those are my responses to all these questions that I've had about Kilimanjaro. I'm going to hop in the comments now. Oh, Rachel, yes. Okay, Rachel's here in the comments, and Rachel climbed Kilimanjaro with us, and Rachel celebrated her 69th birthday on Kilimanjaro, and she's incredible and inspiring. So Rachel is in the comments, and if you have any questions, if you're watching the replay and you have any questions that you would maybe like to address to Rachel, especially if maybe you're in your 60s or even your 70s and you're thinking about Kilimanjaro, Rachel's happy to answer those questions. And Rachel's inspiring and incredible. So she can certainly share her experience with you. So thank you, Rachel, and it's good to see you here on the live stream. And that's all I have. Let me give you some information if you're interested in joining me for our next Kilimanjaro climb. You can learn more. Look at this. Look at that ticker that I'm like the news here down there. So you can learn more about our next Kilimanjaro climb by visiting our website at hikelikeawoman.com. And we also do more than just Kilimanjaro. So maybe Costa Rica is more up your alley. I am leading a trip to Costa Rica in April. So that trip is going to consist of some hiking. We're going to do some stand-up paddleboarding. We're going to do some yoga. We're going to do a cooking class. And we're going to do a 3-day river trip on the beautiful Pequare River. I partner with the Pequare Outdoor Center every single year for this trip, and it's so fun. So if Kilimanjaro is not your thing, but you're thinking maybe a trip to Costa Rica in April is your thing, it's going to be a fun trip. I'm also leading trips to Scotland, the West Highland Way in June. And we have 2 trips to do the Tour de Mont Blanc next August and then Kilimanjaro next September. We have openings for Costa Rica. West Highland Way and both Tour de Mont Blancs are sold out, but I expect we'll have 1 or 2 cancellations. So make sure you get on our wait list, and you can do that. Just email me and be like, hey, Rebecca, put me on the wait list for Tour de Mont Blanc, and I'll add you to the wait list. And then we have a lot of openings for Kilimanjaro. And this year on Kilimanjaro, we're actually going to offer a pre-trip safari. So if you want to fly in a little bit early and do a safari with me, safaris are fun. I never thought I was a safari kind of girl. And then I saw a lion, and now I love safari. And we're actually going to be putting together a post-trip safari as well, because a few people who are going to be joining us for this climb want to do a safari after the climb. So you'll have the option to either do safari, climb, safari, or climb safari, or just the climb. So that is all going to be up on our website. So that's it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. That was a really long Q&A session, but as always, I'm here. If you have any questions, just reach out, Rebecca@hikelikeawoman.com, DM me on all the socials, and I will see you hopefully on Kilimanjaro. So thanks so much. Have a fantastic weekend.